Practice makes perfect? Maybe, but how do we actually practice effectively at golf? What should we be doing which will genuinely help us get better? And crucially, how do we maximize the limited amount of practice time we have? I've been wrestling with these questions for the past couple of months, and I think I found the answer. Hello, welcome back, or if you're new here, hello, I am Joel. I took up golf in my late 30s, and on this channel I am detailing my journey to get as good as I possibly can and all of the ups and many downs that entails. I'm releasing new videos every week, so if that sounds interesting or if you get some value from this, then I would love it if you would consider subscribing to the channel. Today I want to talk about practice, or more specifically, proper practice that can deliver sustainable improvement and do so in a way that maximizes the time we have available to practice each week. So far in the Game Improvement series, we've looked at lessons, we've looked at podcasts, fitness, and a bunch of other things, but practice was always going to be a key part of the plan when it comes to getting better at golf over the long term. It's not hard to find suggested practice routines out there, and you can look at a bunch on YouTube or Google, and I've certainly seen several of these myself, whether it's weekly practice schedules or pro practice schedules, or this is the practice schedule of a college golf team. And I have tried to follow these myself, as I'm sure some of you have, but I have ultimately found two main problems with these. Number one, they're far too prescriptive and they don't take into account the massive variances in terms of what an individual golfer needs to work on in their own game at a given moment in time. And number two, they're not flexible enough when it comes to how much time a person might have to practice on a given week, or indeed how much that might change from one week to the next. So over the past couple of months, I have set about building a practice schedule of my own that combines the best of these things with some other research that I've done myself. It's what I'm using now, but because it is flexible and can be individually tailored, I hope that it might provide some value to you also. Firstly, a shout out to some of the resources that I used that went into this practice plan. Number one, the Practice Manual by Adam Young. Number two, the 4 Foundations of Golf by John Sherman. Thirdly, a couple of the YouTube videos that I cited earlier, which I will link in the description below. And number 4 is my own golf coach, who I can't link anywhere, but did contribute some ideas for drills and certain other things I factored into this practice plan. What I've tried to do is take elements from all of these and combine them into a practice plan which is focused, measurable, and flexible depending on what it is that you need to work on in your game currently and how much time you have available to do so in any given week. The idealized version of this practice plan assumes for 3 practice sessions a week, but if you can't get round to that, don't click off, because at the end I will go through how to flex the plan downwards or upwards if you can only do 2 or even just 1 session in a given week. Ideally, each session would last for around 90 minutes, but they can certainly be done in 60 or 45 or probably even 30 if you are crunched for time. But if you are able to do 3 sessions a week, I will run through what a weekly plan would look like and each session in a little bit more detail. So session 1, and indeed all the sessions, would start with a warm-up. Now you can do whatever you want to do for this, but don't skip it, because that is how injuries happen. Myself, I tend to use the Fit for Golf dynamic warm-up, which I'll link in the description as well. It takes less than 10 minutes. If you can't do that or don't want to do that, then just some stretching with some bands, some warm-up swings with some clubs, whatever's going to get the heart rate up a little bit and make sure the muscles are warm before you move into properly full swinging. And then the first thing to do is to test. Test where your game is at in the given moment and that given week. It's impossible to put together a proper schedule of what you need to work on without knowing what parts of your game are lagging currently. So what I do is just a simple 10-ball test in the first practice session of every week, tracking 3 separate variables. 1 is my direction, 2 is my strike on the face of the golf club, and 3 is my ground contact. Now you can put numbers against these and track your progress over time. I will link a grid for doing so in the description, or you can just go week to week and look at whichever of the 3 is weakest at that given time and then work on that in the remainder of the session and any other sessions throughout the rest of the week. So depending on where you are with your game, and if you are trying to make swing changes, if you're working with a coach and trying to implement some technical changes, now would be the best time to do it. Your first practice session of the week is likely to be the one which is the furthest away from your next round or potentially your next competition. So you want to do the technical work as early on in the week and as far away from those things as possible. Now, this is where some of the flexibility comes in. The technical changes that I am working on will be different from yours and different from another golfer's. So saying specifically you need to do these technical drills or this movement pattern change for everyone just doesn't make sense. But if you are able to do 3 sessions a week, then putting aside a portion of that first session to do your technical work is a good idea. For me, I'm trying to work on a couple of things in my swing, mostly keeping myself connected and also not overswinging, which is why you'll see me working with this rather fetching squishy green ball. After that, it's on to priority work. And again, this is something which is tailored to the individual and will be based on a couple of things. One is the testing that you've just done early in the session, and 2 is what's showing up in the course on your rounds at any given time. If you're going out and your ball striking is great, but you're 4-putting a bunch of greens or you're yipping all of your chips, then that's a pretty good indication of something you need to work on. Conversely, if your iron play is great, but you can't keep it on the planet off the tee, then driver would be something you would slot into this place. The last one is particularly applicable for me at the moment in my game. My putting's pretty decent, my iron play is pretty decent, but my driving is terrible and my chipping around the green is awful as well at the moment. So this slot in my weekly schedule, I'm tending to focus on tee shots and getting to the practice greens and just doing some work on my chipping. So assuming you are able to do 3 sessions in a given week, session 2 would look like this. Again, we start with a warm-up as before, and then this time we move on to technical work continued potentially. Again, this will come down to how much practice time you have and whether you are trying to make fundamental swing changes. It may also come down to what part of the year you're in, if you're in off-season or on-season training. For me now, I am still working through some swing changes, so I like to have a second portion of my weekly training to try and drill those things back in. Changing movement patterns is difficult, so for me, having 2 areas of my weekly training where I can try to work on that is advisable. But if you're not making swing changes, or if you think that 1 block of technical work a week is enough, then you can move straight on to the big 3. Now, if anyone doesn't know what I mean by the big 3, and again, shout out to the Sweet Spot podcast, who I've referenced on this channel before, the big 3 are the fundamental ball striking skills that anyone needs to master to get genuinely good at golf, and they are face direction, so the direction your club face is pointing at impact, face strike, so whether you're hitting the sweet spot of the club or toe or heel, and then ground contact, whether you're making ball first contact or whether you're catching the ball fat or thin. Ultimately, being a decent golfer or even just improving at golf means improving these 3 skills, so they should absolutely be a fundamental part of your weekly practice schedule. The testing done at the start of the week can help inform you on which of these 3 areas is lagging the most and therefore which you may want to work on in this particular slot. Now, you don't need to work on all 3 every week. It could just be that you pick 1 or maybe 2 to work on, but dedicating some time to these things pretty much every time you go out and practice is going to be super valuable and help you make progress. And again, ideally this is something you would both track over time to see how you are progressing and also be able to quantify within a given schedule. So let's say you're working on direction. For instance, you can pick a target out on the range, hit 20 balls and see how many out of that 20 you can land within a certain number of fingers either side of the target depending on your skill level. And speaking of skill, gamified practice is something which is very often missing from a typical golfer's practice schedule, but the lack of it is one of the main reasons for your classic "but I hit it so good on the range" laments. If your practice simply consists of hitting the same club again and again to the same target, then yeah, you probably will hit it pretty well, but that's not exactly reflective of how golf works out on the course. There are countless examples of skill games you can use while you're on the range. If you're using something like a top tracer or a TrackMan or any kind of launch monitor, then these have really good quantified skill games built in. And if you're not, then I will throw some links down in the description to some skill games you can test out and see if you like them, or you can even just make up your own. The point is to be hitting different shots to different targets with intention and tracking how well you're doing, whether that's out of a number of balls, giving yourself a number of points, or whatever it might be. And then for our 3rd session, once again, we begin with warm-up, and then the second block I suggest is more work on your big 3, either continuing whichever one you were working on in the previous session or moving on to something else. It's sort of impossible to state how important these fundamentals are. You really can't dedicate too much time to improving your face strike, your ground contact, or your club face direction. By this time in the week, we are possibly getting closer to our next round or even a competition, so it's time to bring the work into focus and to see what is going to deliver the best results next time we step out onto the course. For this, I absolutely need to shout out once again Adam Young and his concept of performance training. What this means essentially is testing out different mental focuses to see which is going to work best for you at a given moment in time. So this might be what shot shape you're trying to hit, or it could be whether you have a wide or very narrow focus on your target. It could be whether you're focused on a particular technical thought or more a visualization of, say, your ball flight. Or it could even be focusing on something completely neutral, like the beats of a metronome, or even humming a song or counting in your head. Essentially, the question is, what is going to deliver the best results in terms of swing thoughts next time you step out on the course? So the idea here would be to pick 2 or 3 of these, hit shots with different variables and see which is producing the best results on the range. So for instance, hit 10 shots trying to hit a fade, 10 shots trying to hit a draw, and see which of those results in the tightest dispersion. And you don't necessarily need to actually be hitting a fade or a draw, it's just which swing thought is going to deliver the best result. Similarly, whether you're picking out a very narrow focus target like a blade of grass or a much wider one like 2 markers out on your driving range, just test and see which is delivering you the best results, as that's likely to be the thing you're best off thinking about for your next round. So once you've done the transference training, take whichever swing thought you've decided on for that week into the skill games and again, do some quantified practice. Or if you do have access to something like a top tracer or a launch monitor, this would be a great time to do a virtual round. And that's it. Congratulations, you are now a professional golfer. Or not, probably, but you very likely did get at least a little bit better. So to sum up, this is what it would look like at a weekly view. As I said at the start, this is based on the assumption that you can do 3 sessions in a given week. If you're able to scale it up, then great, just double up on some of the focus areas depending on your current priorities. And if you can't do 3 sessions a week, then the plan can absolutely flex. This is what it would look like doing 2 sessions a week. And if you can only do 1, then just pare it back to the following. Obviously, this is just my practice plan, and even more obviously, I am not a PGA professional. But for me, this strikes the right balance between being structured and deliberate, but also being flexible depending on your current priorities, what you're working on in your game, and also life getting in the way and how much time you might have available from week to week. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this useful. If you did, I would love it if you would consider subscribing to the channel. I am putting out videos every week detailing my golf journey. And do let me know in the comments below if you give the practice plan a try and what you think of it.